Hi there, this is Matt at State of Flux, here with a review for Jaws 3D. Not the re-release of Jaws in 3D, we're talking about Jaws the Third in D. And this movie probably earns that D on a teacher's grading scale. It is a testament to how awful Jaws the Revenge is that this movie isn't as reviled in the pantheon of cinematic terrible sequels. It is nigh unwatchable. It is just... why is it? And the thing is there's like so much fun like if they were to remake... if they're remaking Jaws, I don't think they are yet anyway, but if Jaws were to be remade and you were to point to one that isn't the first one to try and do like a revisit on, this would be the one to do, because the set pieces here are fantastic. This sets up what should be a fun movie, even in 3D, but it is so outrageously poorly shot that you can't tell what's happening. Like, watching this in 2D is an experience, because there's no other way to say it. It is a fugly movie that just is fugly. It suffers from a lot of the same issues that like Friday the 13th 3D had, but that was a much better movie, and when I'm giving that movie praise, heavens. But Friday the 13th 3D, along with this, the way you shoot the 3D for this style of 3D is you had to kind of overlight everything, and with the oversaturation of light, making something scary isn't necessarily plausible. And when you're watching this in 3D, it's just, it doesn't look good. Like, there's one or two shots that kind of work, but the depth that this movie offers is pretty weak sauce. There's very much like a lack of depth, which is what they were going for. So instead they have some scenes where they're sticking out at you, and those scenes like captivate you for a second, but like collectively throughout the entire film, if you were to like just do a cut scene of all the things sticking out at you, that is an effective use of the 3D that this film was able to capture, you got maybe 37 seconds out of this hour and 38-minute movie, and it's just like, my God. I hate it, and this movie should be good. This movie stars Leah Thompson in her very first role. Who doesn't love Leah Thompson? I would watch Leah Thompson in anything. I reviewed Howard the Duck in the past year, and almost enjoyed that because of her. I couldn't do it with this one. This movie has Dennis Quaid, and I like Dennis Quaid. If the stories are true, and he claims that he doesn't remember much of this movie because there was not a single frame of this movie where he wasn't high on cocaine, if that story is true, that is an incredibly disturbing thing to hear, because there are scenes in this movie where he's like driving up to people on like speedboats and stuff like that, and I'm like, that's incredibly irresponsible, bro. But regardless, who doesn't like a Dennis Quaid in their movie? Turns out this movie sucks. There's nothing good. He would be a good choice for Mike Brody if they did anything with his character. He's Mike Brody in name only. There's no connective tissue to the previous two Jaws movies where you could get that was the same character, outside of he has a throwaway reference to his dad. And then they include the Sean Brody character and then forget about him. This movie did the exact same problem that Jaws 2 did. I remember when I was reviewing Jaws 2 and I complained about that, about how the one thing that really kind of worked with the movie is the father-son storyline and whatnot, and then it's about a son who's trying to access his own agency and be an adult and put the shit that happened behind him, and the father who's overprotecting the son because of the shit that happened, and the two kind of butting heads. That was the compelling, interesting part, but then all of a sudden in the last act, Mike just kind of disappears and they forget about him, and there's a throwaway line of him being like, oh yeah, Sean's out there, you gotta go save Sean, and then it just becomes the Sean show. This is kind of similar to that in that Sean shows up here and you think he's going to have an interesting dramatic effect on the story, and he doesn't. And again, he's also Sean in name only. He comes in like a fucking cowboy for some reason, and is like a hey now kind of fella, and it's like, that, why? Like, they were living on Amity Island. Like, that kid was young enough that he'd probably adapt to the ways of those people. So the whole cowboy thing, pardon me, I'm choking just like this movie did. That whole thing just read inauthentic. And then his character just disappears. Like, Leah Thompson gets injured, and then presumably he just like hangs out with her for the rest of the movie. But we never revisit him again or even mention him after that happens. For the last 30 minutes of this film, he just completely dips out. This movie stars Simon McCorkindale. That's a fun name. That's a positive for this movie. He was in like Manimal or something, right? In like the 80s. I remember that show briefly. Yeah, I'm struggling. This movie's a piece of shit. This is literally like so bad. A 1-star movie, and I remembered this movie fondly from my childhood. This is one I would turn to from time to time, a lot of, because I was really captivated by the hero dolphins, which I thought had way more of a presence in this film than they actually do, and it turns out they actually don't. It's really just one scene. But I also like the idea of like setting in SeaWorld and being trapped underneath, and I think like in a vacuum, all the set pieces this film ought to have if this movie had an inflated budget, which, like, this is the Jaws franchise, the franchise that launched the blockbuster, the second movie of which was the highest grossing movie of 1978. How did they not have more money to throw at this fucker? But like the underwater, like I've always thought being in those like underwater tubes and seeing all the fish and stuff floating above you and stuff is great, and having the idea of having a shark come and like penetrate that and like you're gonna drown, like that's good claustrophobic fear like inducing stuff. If this movie were to be remade today with a budget, I feel like you could make a really genuinely good, compelling movie, and maybe even a fun one like Deep Blue Sea style. But the way that they did this here lacks any kind of fun. There's no scares. It's overlit, under like thought. No actors are like present. Apparently, even in front of the camera, the dude was like high off his fucking mind, and it's just such a huge fall from the first Jaws movie. Pardon me. I have allergies and I'm getting blasted today. That said, I'm excited to talk to you about the next movie. This was one that I rewatched a lot when I was a kid, Jaws 3. This was my first viewing of it in 3D, and it wasn't as successful as Friday the 13th 3D earlier this year. Even the 3D gimmick can't save this movie. There's very little to like about it. But up next, we're going to talk about what history considers by many to be the worst sequel of all time. And let's see how that holds up. I have a feeling that I'm going to be surprised at my response to that movie, in that this movie is bad, but not even in a fun way, and I have a feeling Jaws the Revenge hurls itself so far beyond stupid that it becomes kind of silly and fun. We'll see. But as of now, Jaws 3D, my boy, this is not a movie that I ever want to partake in ever again in life. Yeah, let me know what you think of this film in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and peace.